Hi, Gene Monterastelli here, the editor of tappingqna.com. The video that you are about to watch is a conversation that was a part of this year's 24 Hours of Tapping. The 24 Hours of Tapping is a fundraiser for the amazing work that is done by the Peaceful Heart Network. The Peaceful Heart Network has brought tapping to migrants, refugees, prisoners, and the underprivileged in over 30 countries all over the world. As you watch this video, if you learned something, if you were touched by it, if you were inspired by it, the easiest way to say thank you is to support the work of the Peaceful Heart Network. To do that, all you need to do is go to 24hoursoftapping.com/support. And as you look in the description and the first comment down below, you will see a direct link to that. I hope you enjoy this conversation.
I'm thrilled to introduce to you Jules Vandermaat, who is a Certified Master EFT Trainer, social worker, and trauma therapist from down here, down under with me. She specialises in using EFT to help people recover from sexual trauma and training health professionals in clinical EFT. She is known for teaching EFT the slow, safe, and gentle way. So absolutely join me in welcoming Jules to our stage. Hello, Jules. How are you down there in Coffs Harbour?
Oh, hi, Peter. It's lovely to see you.
It is, and it's such a good topic that we're going to dive deep into. Obviously, I've got some backstage notes that everyone, I hope, can open their workbook and follow along. This is such a cool term, a body whisperer. Tell me, what inspired that kind of phrase?
Yeah, so I have sort of fallen back in love with just teaching average people how to use EFT for themselves. I've spent a long time teaching health professionals and working with very traumatized people. And maybe as a break from that, I've wanted to let's just get it straight into the hands of the people that want to do it and help themselves. Yeah. And so I've been running these groups, and this particular group is an in-person group. So I have 12 lovely older women. It's called Wise Older Women Who Tap. And so we're all kind of 50s, 60s, 70s. And we just meet once a month, and I teach them, silent tapping, basic EFT, chasing the pain, cravings we're doing this month, etc., etc. Anyway, I had a session. The last group session was just sort of mind-blowing. It was the fourth one in a series of 6. And one of the women, we were working on pain, and I did a couple of one-on-one demos, and everybody tapped along and everybody was loving it. And then this woman said, I'm going to go home and work on this pain that I have. And then, so she came back. So that was in May. And then she came back in June, and she was just like, oh my God, I've got to share with you. I went home and did Chasing the Pain on this pain that I've had for 8 years. And she said, and she did Chasing the Pain beautifully. And it was like a purple, black, swirly knot in the area where she's had this pain. And she said, I was doing Chasing the Pain just how you showed me. And then my body told me it was guilt from when I left my marriage 8 years ago. And she was like, oh my God. She said, I never would have thought. She said, I always kind of just put it down to stress from the marriage breakdown and everything that happens after that. Yeah. Anyway, so she sort of kept tapping, and she was just blown away. And I just spoke to her today, actually, to get permission to share her story, which she was happy for me to. And she said the pain hasn't returned. She's had it every day for 8 years. It's been a massive problem, and she did it herself. And so anyway, I have sort of noticed through my own work, working with very traumatized people for a long time, that what you really have to get good at is working with the body, So you're a psychologist, I'm a social worker. We're good at working with people, and we're good at working with trauma. But nothing, apart from your university, nothing in my university degree or any training before EFT actually trained me in somatic work or working with the body, right? And so I sort of just had this idea that I have become like a body whisperer. I'm really good at noticing what's happening in the body that might be different to what the person's telling me in terms of what they are consciously aware of or cognitively, intellectually saying is going on. So anyway, this term sort of body whisperer came to me. And then when this woman shared her experience, I was like, well, actually anybody can become a body whisperer, right?
Mm.
If you make the time, if you put the effort in, if you get a few basic skills and a bit of guidance, like, you know, she just is still blown away that she was able to do that herself.
And I think, you know, you said it in the phrase, her body told her.
Yes.
You know, and she listened, and you know,
it was
wow,
clear as day.
this is exciting. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And so tell me, let's dive deep then a little bit into this, because I know anyone, and the chat's function's going off over here. So clearly this is resonating with people. So in that very kind of, you know, medical model, it has always sort of still been the case that the mind and the body were being treated quite separately.
Yeah.
But is what is sort of part of this process coming back to integrating those, or actually listening to the body as something separate from what might be going through your head?
Yeah. So my approach to that, and it has been very informed by Iron Lion and sort of somatic experiencing, right? Like that's really influenced the way that I work and the way that I teach. And what I've sort of taken from that is, and how I educate, you know, people that I'm training and mentoring and also clients, is to think of the body as a separate being, right?
Okay.
So, you know, let's say here's Meredith. Meredith has come along to work on her back pain, and consciously, intellectually, she wants to do that, and she's paid the money and she's made the time for the session and she wants to get better. But the body is like, I'm not sure about this. I don't know this lady, right? What's this EFT thing? I don't understand what we're doing. You know, I've had bad experiences with psychologists in the past or whatever. You know, like the body keeps the score, as Bessel says. The body remembers everything that's ever happened to us. And so the body basically has its own agenda, right? Which we know as, you know, professionals, the body's agenda is about keeping us safe. And so if the body feels like doing EFT with me might make something worse, right? Like might be risky in some way, might make me feel too vulnerable, exposed, emotional, like those things could feel very unsafe to that body. And so, so I've just sort of learned and I teach that it's really important for us to educate anyone we're working with about how EFT works, how stored survival stress or trauma shows up in the body, that the body does have its own agenda and it is kind of like its own being, right? And it's listening all the time to every little thing that we say to ourselves, all the mean things we say to ourselves in our head. And it responds really strongly to our environment, right? So if we think of ourselves as a nervous system or from the body's perspective, you know, like what sort of a lot of the research is telling us is that the nervous systems or bodies of those around us have a massive influence on our nervous system and our body. And similarly, the reason that surrogate tapping works is because if when we work on our own body and our own nervous system, then that has a positive influence on those around us. And so we'll see change in other people solely by working on ourselves. So it's kind of just coming from that place of, and clients like it, I find, like, okay, so my body's like its own little thing, person, being, you know, it's like, so there's conscious you, intellectual you, cognitive you has these thoughts and about these things and things that you want to change. But the body and, you know, I kind of say and or nervous system, I mean, they're all one. It's, you know, like what I kind of teach my people that I train, you kind of got to assume that everything's going to be a bit of a bigger deal to the body than you expect. And most things are going to be a bigger deal to the body than the client expects, right? Like when this woman who was in my group, she thought, I'll just see if I can do a bit of tapping before I go to bed on this pain so I can have a better sleep. And then this massive thing, guilt about leaving my husband, comes up for her. And it's a massive thing for her, right? And so she kind of kept tapping and she kept tapping and she sort of said in the end, she goes like, whoa, I was like freaked out. Like this is amazing in a good way, but also she felt a bit scared in a way, like, because what came underneath the pain was the guilt, and then underneath this big layer of guilt was a whole lot of anger. Actually, but first there was sadness, right? Like, so the next few days, and this is part of the education that I do with people, is that, you know, when you're doing tapping, it's really powerful. You're stirring the pot of the nervous system, right? So if you think about you're making a pot of soup on the stove, and then you think, oh, I'll just go and hang the washing out. And then you forget that the soup's on the stove, and you come back to the stove, oh, bugger, it's burnt. And there's really, it's very difficult to stir the soup without the burnt soup coming up. So this is just an analogy that I use to explain
Love
to people.
the analogies. Yes.
Yeah, that we can't, when we're tapping, it really looks like we're not doing much, but it's very deep and powerful. And so we are effectively stirring the pot of the nervous system. And if you're stirring a pot of burnt soup on the stove, you can't make it so that the burnt soup doesn't come up, right? Like, how do you do that? You can't really. Right. So what I'm saying is the burnt soup is like the sort of stored survival stress, the old emotions, the old traumas, you know, like traumatic events, blah, 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 sensations, things that are trapped during, you know, just bad, scary events that have happened in our past. And so, you know, what I teach is it's really important to educate people, and I educate these women in my group, that, you know, you might be doing some chasing the pain, but know that by doing that, you're storing one of the nervous system in your body, and it won't end with finishing chasing the pain. Like, there might be stuff that floats up, right? And then, you know, making sure that they know how to deal with that. Oh, I feel sad. I feel sad. Oh, actually, I feel really sad. Right? When I got married to him, I didn't expect us to be, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so then she said all this sadness came up, and that freaked her out a little bit, because even though I'd prepared her for that, actually experiencing it was intense, you know. And when I spoke to her today, because I sort of wanted to know, has the pain come back? What have you noticed? What have you experienced? And she said, well, actually, I've had all this anger. I said, oh, tell me about the anger. She goes, well, I felt so guilty about leaving him, even though she said the marriage was terrible, right? And she, in a way, she didn't have a choice, but he would never do anything about anything, right? He never took responsibility for anything. So she said, I had to be the one to end it. And she
that
said,
was the anger.
She said, I felt so guilty about leaving him that I didn't look after myself financially. I made a whole lot of decisions based on guilt that I would never make now, right? And she said, and he painted me out to be the baddie in the whole family. And I've still been treated like the baddie because I left the marriage, right? So she said, I've had all this anger coming up about old things that happened. Like, she said, we're actually in quite a good place, him and I now, right? The co-parent, blah, blah, blah. But she said, I had all this anger coming up. And I said, that's the burnt soup, right? Burnt soup doesn't taste nice, right? If I'm making minestrone, the top part's really nice. But if I burn the bottom of it, that does not taste nice, right? And so she said, oh, yeah, that's the burnt soup, you know. And then she said, but, you know, but the soup that's not burnt feels really good. And she sort of reported all these positive things that she'd noticed. And anyway.
Amazing. So, Jules, when and I see absolute great value in teaching people to take on this skill themselves so that they can use it, and that ripple effect. Does it look any differently if you're treating the body as sort of its own separate entity, and we're, you know, learning to become a body whisperer ourselves? And like, how does it look any different in the language or the words or the tapping process itself if you were teaching someone to do this at home?
Yeah, I think it's just a little tiny shift in approach, like, right? So I do this myself, right? What do you want to do today, body? Right? Because my mind says you should really do some work. You should reply to that email, and you should do that. And my body says, I am sick of sitting in front of this screen, and I want to get outside and walk, right? Oh, okay. So anyway, I sort of just encourage people to ask your body like it's a separate little being, what do you want to do today, right? And same as I've got a decision. What do you want to do, body? And the body will tell you, like, especially once you establish the connection that you do with your body when you start tapping, like, you do develop quite a strong connection to your own inner self and body, don't you, when you tap? So if you start asking your body, what do you want to do about this? Like, I'm a bit confused. Should I invite this person, or would that just complicate things? If I say to my body, what do you reckon? The body goes, nah, don't invite them.
I love it. I love
Basically,
it.
you know that'll cause trouble. Like, you know that'll be more trouble than it's worth. Like, I actually like have a conversation with my body, you know. And so the same with people that I'm, you know, whoever I'm working with, like, ask your body, what does it want to do? And they'll be like, oh, okay. No, my body says blah, 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 right? My body says, in order for us to protect ourselves, it's really better to say no, you know, or whatever that is. So I think it's just that it's just a tiny little switch of, like, it's not all me. Like, I'm me and I inhabit my body, but I am not my body, right? There's this sort of like this unconscious me, conscious me that lives in my body, and we experience a whole lot of stuff together, but it really has got its own agenda because it's been with me since I was cells in my mother's ovaries. You know what I mean? So
totally.
It's bringing a whole lot of stuff that I'm not even consciously aware of.
If someone was trying to really tune into that, and maybe this is sort of the first time they've actually ever acknowledged this type of kind of inhabitation, and you are trying to talk to your body, because I can imagine sometimes if you've spent a lifetime absolutely ignoring what your body needs, and then suddenly you go, hi, how you going? And your body goes, I'm not talking to you. I can see that tapping is going to help that process for you to stay calm. But do you ever find that you kind of have to have multiple attempts to have this conversation before the body might warm or be open to giving you information?
No, I feel like the body is always listening and the body is always communicating. It's more about us actually
hearing,
accepting that is happening, and accepting that our agenda is different to the agenda of our body, right? And that, like, you know, like, I've got someone staying with me at the moment, and I said the other day, like, I just can't eat breakfast anymore, right? Like, my body doesn't want to have breakfast. It just doesn't want to eat until after, you know, sort of lunchtime. And I can override that, right? It doesn't really like coffee much anymore. Like, I used to have like 5 coffees a day. Now it's like 1 or 2 max. So my body talks to me very strongly. Like, I know what it wants and what it doesn't want, but I'm, like you said, I override that. I can override that, and then I kind of pay for it in one way or another. But so I think it's not that the body's, like you said, if people make the time, and it can take a skill, and like, I really think that for a lot of people, they're perhaps better off starting with a practitioner. You know, like, this woman said to me, you know, she said about this anger that's coming up, and I said, how do you feel about working on that anger? And she said, oh, I'm not ready because I'm worried that I'm just going to fall apart, and I have a really busy life and a full-on job, and I don't have time to fall apart. And she said, I think I need to just, like, go to the bar in hinterland for 2 weeks and just fall apart and come back, or, you know what I mean? Like, I need to go on a retreat, or I need to just run away from my life. And I said to her, what that says to me is that actually you just need help with it, right? Like, you probably just need some sessions with a certified practitioner, and she's got no money, right? So I just said, I'll fix you up with a mentee so you're not having to pay for anything. But, you know, that we have like 4 weekly sessions of like probably, you know, at least 60, 90 minutes where your body is going, okay, so someone's going to help us, right? The practitioner is here to sort of create like a safe container for us to do the work. It's not a one-off, right? We're going to come back to this week after week so that the body can just let out of whatever little bits of survival stress and stored emotions and traumas and whatever it can. But it's not like it hasn't to be all done in one session. And so the body sort of knows, like, okay, so we're going to get some help with this. Oh, that'll be really good. And it just helps the nervous system relax into the process. And I said to her, you know, if you do it like that, I wouldn't think you would fall apart, right? You can fall apart in the session, but a good practitioner will help put you back together again for the end of the session, and you go back to your life, right? So, and she said, oh, that'd be great. Like, if I could have that sort of level of help with it, I'm happy to do it. I feel ready to do it. But, you know, this is a thing about, it's not just people with trauma. I think it's a lot of people, like, fear that tapping is going to somehow make something worse, right? It's going to bring up stuff I can't deal with. It's going to bring up stuff I didn't know about or had forgotten. It's going to stir the pot, right? And what will the bird suit be? And can I handle that now? And have I got the right support for that now? Have I got capacity in my nervous system to actually deal with what it brings up?
And that capacity, it's almost like the size of your pot that your soup's in, isn't it?
Yeah.
Capacity is a really important concept. Like talk a little bit to that, you know, that whole, how do people know that maybe their pot on the stove is big enough to hold them when they're doing their own work at home?
Yeah. So I sort of I learned about capacity from Irene Lyon and that sort of somatic experiencing world. And she talks about a swimming pool, right?
Yeah.
And she talks about the swimming pool being like the body or the nervous system. And she talks about imagining the swimming pool filled with beach balls, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody who's really at capacity, as in they are, you know, what I say is up to pussy's bow, but the Americans never know what I'm talking about because it's off Kath and Kim or whatever. But when people are really living on the edge, they're in survival mode, they're at capacity, that looks like there's a lot of balls in the swimming pool, right? So there's no room for anything. There's no room to take old balls out.
Yeah.
And balls being stressors, right? Or new events, old events, whatever. So there's no room for those old balls to be removed. And when new stressors happen, like, you know, I broke my leg and now I can't work, there's no room for the new stressors to come in either. So, and so what I sort of talk about is, you know, like teaching people about capacity is once you explain it, how do you know when you're at capacity? And it might be something like for me, it will be like just an email, right? Like an email comes in and I think, oh, I know I need to deal with that, but I just can't look at it. You know, like I can't look at it now, right? I know, or if my husband starts talking to me about a bill or a financial thing, and I'm just like,
I've left the room.
Yeah, and I just say to him now, actually just don't have capacity to have that conversation now. Like I can, and I've sort of trained all the people around me now. Everyone's talking about, I don't have capacity now. I just don't have the capacity.
My swimming pool has too many balls in it.
That's right. That's right. I've got to take some balls out before I can accommodate some new balls. And it's really good because once you sort of like really most people's behavior just teaches us about what their level of capacity is, right? So if I talk to, I was going to say someone in my family because they'll probably never listen to this, but let's say I talk to my sister and we have a conversation and she just talks about herself the whole time. She doesn't ask me anything about me, for example. If I think about it that she's actually so stressed and triggered in her own life that she doesn't have capacity to inquire after my welfare.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when she's in a better space, she does. Right? So people's behavior and the way they communicate and the way they are in the world teaches us about their capacity. And we notice it fluctuates in ourselves and others, you know.
Yes.
And basically, you know, EFT is brilliant at sort of expanding a person's capacity or the size of their pot on the stove. It's brilliant at taking balls out of the swimming pool. It's brilliant at helping us deal with the burnt soup when it floats up in the pot, like it doesn't taste nice.
Yes.
But this is a somatic resource for the body to cope with sad about the marriage breakup, sad that I became the baddie, sad that now I'm financially stuffed and he's not. You know, sad that whatever, that's very global tapping, right? But if she's very triggered, then that would be appropriate. And then, like, you know, for that woman, like then when the anger's coming up, the tapping is the somatic resource for the body to be with the anger that is coming up because it wants to get out, right? So I just sort of explained that, you know, tapping helps us expand our capacity, expand our window of tolerance, our just, you know, ability to be with distress, uncomfortable emotions, sensations, thoughts, etc.
And expand that swimming pool. Tell me, do people ever tap and talk to the body like in a conversation? So it might be, say that lady with the pain in her shoulder and chasing the pain, and obviously tapping on pain responds quite well to the creative and the colours and the temperature and the texture. But can it be that your language can include the conversation to the body, as in
Yes.
I'm listening, I'm
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. In my level 3 training, we teach this sort of technique really, which is if the body had something to say, what would it be?
What you
Right?
say.
Like I was tapping with Bruno, my swap partner, recently, and I said, "Oh, I feel like my brain's hurting. Like my brain is really, I'm so frustrated I can't do this technological thing, right? And I feel it in my brain." And he says to me, because he's trained by me as well, if your brain had something to say about that, what would it be? Right? And I'm
Wow.
just like, oh, well, my brain says I need to move away from the screen and stop focusing on it and stop thinking and stop concentrating and stop trying to make yourself do something you basically don't have the capacity to do right now. Right? And I didn't, that just flew out of my mouth, like things do when you're tapping. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's true, right? And I got up after that session and I went out for a walk and I did some just tapping on, I don't know, something to do with that task, maybe, I don't know. And I just forgot about the whole thing for probably 2 days. And then I came back and just did it.
Wow.
Because, my brain was saying, hey, just stop this intensive focus on something that's hard. Take a break from it. Get away from the screen, the thinking, the trying, trying to push past your capacity, and what your nervous system is saying to you is too much for you right now.
Yeah, wow. I love it. And if anything, that's this theme here for everyone to take away is this: why don't you ask, if that part of your
Yes.
body, if your brain, if your muscle, if your tightness had something to say, what would that be? And see what blurts out. Wow. Love it.
And it's really interesting. I've got a certification mentee from China at the moment, and it's the first time I've had anyone from China. And so she's working mainly with Chinese people, and they're all very focused on work, and it's all about work, and it's all about stress, stress, stress. And it's really interesting because she just lets them choose their own balancing statements, acceptance statements. And what they often say is, but I know I'm better than my boss anyway. Anyway,
Okay.
that's just as a bit of an aside. But she said in a question on a session note recently, because the person she was tapping with about a work issue had sore eyes, but they had come with the sore. She said, might this just be because they're tired from work because it's the end of the day, right? And I said, well, think that the body is communicating at all times about everything, right? So sore eyes is the body communicating about this person working very long hours in a stressful environment that doesn't let up, where she's barely getting a chance to go to the loo or have a break, have something to eat. And so it's not a coincidence that she's got sore eyes, right? And she's an accountant, so she spends a lot of time on a screen, numbers, thinking, concentrating. So, no, it's not like a separate problem. Anything that the body is experiencing during a session is the body's way of saying, hey, can you help us? We're strained, we're tired, you're making us work too much.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. It's amazing. And if anything, this language of the body, which, I think there's a few books written about that kind of thing as well, is so, it's almost simple that you just have to listen and pay attention. And
and we want to make things complicated, don't we, like as humans? I think it's like we try to think it's actually more complicated than it is. And the body isn't like that, really.
And maybe, because I know off air we were kind of chatting about just the concepts here and where this was going to go. Maybe for anyone listening in, how important is it, and what is happening when things in the past are now showing up in the present in the body? Like, what is happening there? How can being a body whisperer be used in that space? Because the example you gave with this lady that you've been working with is brilliant, because it was 8 years ago and she's got this pain now. Like, that relationship between how important is it that we might have to go back to the past because of listening to our body in the present?
Yeah. So I thought for this bit, it'd be good to share. I had like a really clear personal experience of this recently. I went on like a silent meditation retreat in Byron Bay. And I went to this beautiful place called Sangsuria, where I've been multiple times before and really enjoyed probably the previous meditation retreats I've been to, very Qigong focused and more semi-silent than silent, right? This was my first silent retreat, as in fully silent. And I'm like, oh, that's fine. I'll be fine. I've done semi-silent. How hard can it be to just not talk the whole day?
Hang on, Jules. How many days? How many days was this for? Just so we
5
know.
nights.
5 days of silence. Okay, good.
I actually love silence, right? So I'm going there with this full expectation. Like you do, you talk to people for a living for 35 years. You get to a point where silence is good.
Very
so
peaceful.
I go there with this, positive expectation and anticipation of a good time, and the food's wonderful and everything, beautiful place. And anyway, from almost the day I got there, I felt off. I felt on edge. I felt agitated. I felt like, what's going on here? And anyway, I didn't kind of realize initially that basically something in that environment triggered my body to have a memory, right? But the memory wasn't coming initially, right? And it took really tapping every bloody day. I had to tap every day
to get it.
And it was so hard because here I am having to sit in quiet meditation and my body just wants to get the hell out of there, right? And my body wants to walk. My body's literally saying, I want to run away from here. I want to get away from here. I want to get away from here. And I'm thinking these people are going to think I'm like a bit crazy because I really was quite triggered and not myself. And I had to keep going for big walks in the forest and tapping and tapping and tapping. And I'm on edge, feeling on edge. Feeling on edge. Actually, I'm agitated, feeling agitated. I feel really agitated. I know what's wrong with me. I feel really agitated. And I tried to sort of explain to the, one of the women who was running it, and she goes, oh, this is what happens at silent meditations. Things come up for people. And I'm like, no, this is not normal. This is different. This feels next level. Anyway, like I said, every day, I'm tapping. And I was trying to, I was getting specific because obviously I'm a trainer. I know how to do it. And what it was like sitting in this room and being in this environment with all these people who will not look at you, right? Like I'd been on the semi-silent retreats with people who they would still look at you and acknowledge you, and you're allowed to talk after lunch or whatever, right? So there's still some connecting with people and there's still some engagement. And then this retreat is like a whole different story, and people are very serious. And really, most people won't look at you at all, and they look down. And anyway, so when I was doing my own tapping, as I'm walking and in my room and stuff, it's like, I feel disrespected, and I feel it's rude, and I feel upset, and I feel ignored, and I feel like all these layers of all these feelings coming up about people not looking at me. And then there was one little event where someone was a bit mean to me, I thought, anyway, but I was pretty sensitive because I was triggered. Anyway, so to cut a long story short, I did lots and lots of tapping. I didn't enjoy the retreat really at all because I was basically, my body was getting ready. It was in transition, getting ready to give birth to this memory, right? Which I didn't even know that till the last day, but I was thinking, I just can't wait to get out of here. And then the last walk before the final sitting meditation, this memory drops in of me being 11 years old, and my mum, I don't know what she was thinking. She was quite a relaxed Montessori mum, shall we say. She let me, as an 11-year-old, go on a bus to Melbourne from Bendigo to the KISS concert.
Oh, wow.
Thousands of people, right? And I'm pretty sure I was the only 11-year-old. And I'm there with my 13-year-old sister and my best friend and her older brothers, right? And so Mum probably thought, oh, well, she's going with adults. Mary's brothers were there. Well, I got separated from the pack within minutes of getting off the bus, right? So here I am at the Kiss concert, and I loved Kiss. I've got my little Kiss T-shirt on, and I'm just 11 years old thinking, how I can't find my sister. How am I going to get home? Someone will kidnap me, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't remember what I was thinking really at the time. But anyway, so the memory dropped in of 11-year-old me at the Kiss concert, absolutely terrified. And these people were just walking past me. All these people.
And not looking at you.
No one's saying,
wow.
are you okay? Like, do you need help? You're a child. Like, why is a child here by themselves crying? And so anyway, it was just fascinating. Once this memory dropped in, I was like, oh, now I understand why I've been struggling so much with people not looking at me and not engaging with me and not connecting with me, and why feeling ignored felt so difficult when previously it was fine and I liked it. Anyway, so I did, in the sitting meditation, I did this quick little, a bit of EFT on what the hell, Mum, were you thinking? Letting me go to the next concert as an 11-year-old and having this traumatic experience that then had stayed in my body for 40-something years, basically. And then I did a quick little matrix on myself where I said, what do you want? I want my mum. I want my sister. And I brought them all in and we all hugged and it was lovely. And I did, so, and then I felt fabulous after doing my own work on that memory, right? But like it was days of being
trying to let it come up,
kind of in transition until it dropped in. Yeah. And they just thought, oh yeah, this is what happens when, and maybe that is what happens when people are on meditation retreats and they're struggling with the stuff because the being still maybe,
yes, and the no communication. Amazing.
For me, it was a definite memory.
No, totally. And the body doesn't lie, does it? That's the thing.
No.
It's just, we get
it remembers everything. Yeah.
Unreal. Jules, I know you've, again, like lots of our speakers, made some really generous donations so that people can access and learn a little bit more about this. And part of that is some new work that you're doing in this space. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like EFT Connect and just the importance too of, and you did already touch on it, being supported when you need it, that these tools are great and they can be self-applied and that's brilliant. But sometimes we do need support, don't we? Like the body might react so strongly that might be a sign that, hey, it's not okay to keep pursuing this tapping by myself. Tell us a bit about,
so the new business that I've created is called Clinical EFT Connect, and it's basically it came about in response to, like, I stopped doing personal sessions with people over a year ago because I just was wanting to focus on growing the training, mentoring side of things. And I just continued to get emails saying, I want to work with someone like you. I want to work with a mental health professional who's really good at trauma, who's really good at EFT, And even though I trained all these people and certified all these great people, they weren't actually going into private practice for the most part. So I didn't really have people to refer people to that I kind of trusted necessarily. And anyway, so I put together this business where I've got some of my top certified EFT practitioners, and 80% of them are mental health professionals like me, because that's what people were asking for, right? I want to work with a therapist who is also a certified EFT practitioner. So basically people refer someone to the service. I meet them first and I work out, do you really need to see a psychologist, or is this just a bad breakup and seeing a good EFT practitioner will be enough? So I do like an intake assessment, 40 minutes, and then I match people with a practitioner or groups, which I run all the groups. So that's the business. And I said to my team of 10 practitioners, I'd love for us to donate something as a collective. What will it be? I'll donate 4 sessions. I'll donate 4 sessions. So 8 of them said, I'll give 4 sessions with me as my donation. So 8 of the practitioners have donated 4 sessions each. So that's a total of 32, 4, 8, so 32.
32 sessions are on offer. That's amazing. Yes.
So I'm not sure how they're going to work out how.
Yeah, we'll let Jean talk about that.
That's right. But basically they'll book a session with me and I will, I think you'd go well with Bruno, or I think you'd go well with Vanessa, or, I match people basically on the basis of presentation, problem, personality.
That's fantastic, and absolutely so generous that 32 sessions, everybody here, are on offer. And obviously Jules can match you perfectly, and I'm guessing international representation here, Jules.
Yeah, because we're all over the world as well.
Yep.
So
so
eight packages of 4. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you. That is so generous. So, of course, when Jean pops back, he is going to share, how people can donate to the bigger, greater cause here of just spreading EFT. But, of course, thanking you for that contribution as well. Jules, this has been brilliant. Just to dive a bit deeper into the whole body. It's funny, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, yeah, look, I've been waking up in the mornings the last couple of weeks, just a bit tired in here, not going to the gym, so I can't blame that. And I'm thinking, it is a bit cooler up here, so I think I'm kind of sleeping a bit like this because I'm cold. But my body just said to me, you'll love this. My body just said, my neck, I just tuned in and asked, and it said, can you buy us a new pillow?
Wow.
And I went, guess what I'm doing this afternoon when we wrap it up? I'm going off to buy a new 2 pillows because I think my pillow got too flat and my neck's going, we need a new pillow.
We need a bit more support, please.
I need some support. I love it. This has been a wonderful conversation, Jules. Thank you so much for all your wisdom. Everyone, I look forward to
see you.
The Body Whisperer just joining your lives too. So fantastic. Thanks so much, Jules. And we will welcome back Jean.
If you found this interview inspiring, I would encourage you to support the Peaceful Heart Network by going to 24hoursoftapping.com/support or clicking the link in the description. And you will see on the screen right now a playlist to all of the interviews from this year's and last year's 24 Hours of Tapping. I hope you enjoyed those as well.